Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a knife review I know many people were waiting on. This is the legendary Maxace Neptune OTF. Why is this OTF so special? Well, let's start off with the fact that this thing costs $108, which is amazing, especially considering the quality of this OTF. I've been talking about this for a bit. Everybody's been talking about this for a bit. This knife, let's say, hit the ground like a superhero from the sky, right? Fist down, earth cracked, boom. Oh my gosh. What? This is wild. Now listen, I'm going to link this knife down in the description. If you didn't know, all of my content is pre-recorded, so I can only react to availability based on real time, but when you guys are watching this, it might be different. In my time, it is currently not available. Maxace is smart though. They will probably continue to release this or different variants of it. So I'll link it, check the links. It might be available, it might not. It's obviously very, very popular. So I'll do my best to provide links that will populate availability. Thanks to Maxace for sending this knife in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Now, I carry this knife actually quite a bit more than I normally carry a knife review, and I do that when I really like something. So I really like this knife, but I didn't, as is the case with all of the knives that I review, I don't go out and like pound this thing through the earth, right? I don't go pry boulders in half and do stuff like that. I just use it as a regular knife. So any debris that got on it was easily wiped off. It's also, you know, if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I sometimes EDC knives that are worth well over $1,000. In fact, to reference the Rockstead, that thing has a broken tip and it's worth more than 10 times this. So while it might look super duper clean, I don't have any reservations against using a knife like this. It just wasn't used on anything that made it ultra dirty or dunked it up super bad. But even when it did have some adhesive and things on the blade, or just like tape residue, it didn't really slow it down at all. That was something that I thought was really cool. I never had a failure. And if you look back at like, you know, live streams and when the unboxing occurred, I've been deploying this thing on camera, lots. And way more off camera. It has never failed. I did hit it with a shot of Rem oil right out of the box. I do that with all of my OTFs. Rem oil is definitely what you should be using. It's a dry lubricant, and it doesn't, I think it leaves Teflon behind, which is good for the internals in an OTF. That's what Microtech, I believe, still uses at their factory. After that, you know, I mean, maybe it would have done just as well without it, but I've never had a failure. It's been firing very, very hard and very consistently. So overall, extremely impressed with the consistent firing action of this knife, which is something that is usually not the case with an OTF at this price point. This is different than anything in terms of quality, reliability, execution. This stands so far outside of what we would normally expect at this price point. It is absolutely amazing. Now, obviously this is going to be kind of a gush fest, right? But let me go ahead and get some quick specs here. The overall length of the Neptune is coming in at 8.85 inches, not counting the glass breaker. If you count the glass breaker, you're looking at a little more than 9 1/8. The blade length is coming in at 3.75 to the peak of the frame here, and the cutting edge is about 3.6. Let's do first some size comparisons with some full-sized Microtech OTFs. It's very similar in the overall size to the Direct Delta, which is the bigger one. But you'll notice here a point that stands out is the blade height. It's such a wide blade for how little room it has inside of the frame there. Let's put it up against the Glycon, which is, I think, one of the best looking OTFs to ever exist. Again, it's got a little bit of a taller blade. And then up against the Combat Troodon. Combat Troodon's a little bit bigger and has, also a fairly wide blade, but still wider with the Neptune, right? Now, these OTFs, truthfully, I would compare them in terms of quality. I would say the Maxace Neptune feels extremely similar in overall quality, which is also something that you don't normally get. And you got the guys who buy the Raven Crest and Cobra Techs, and they'll be like, "This is the same thing as Microtech." No. But yeah, if it works for you, that's fine, man. That's fine. But no, it isn't. Now, the Neptune, yeah. The Neptune is definitely there in terms of overall execution and feeling of action, power, all of that. The difference is that the Maxace Neptune is made in China, which is absolutely the reason that it costs so much less. The Microtechs are going to be more expensive. They are utilizing more expensive steel, and the manufacturing costs of a Microtech are factually higher. So if you have reservations against buying things from China, that's perfectly fine. You can buy the Microtechs, right? That's where you're going to need to be to get the equivalent in terms of size and quality. Probably your best bet would be something like the Kershaw Livewire for an American-made OTF that is similar in size and quality. Of course, your Guardian Tacticals and your Axials, right? But the true full-sizers, from Microtech, those are going to be substantially more expensive. So I just want to give you guys my feelings on that. You can have whatever opinion you want. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against some more common knives. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. You can see here, it's honestly a pretty big knife. It just doesn't carry very big because it is an OTF with a really good carry profile, which we'll look at here in a second. Up against the PM2 and the Para 3. And then finally, I'm running out of room on my desk, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action? Well, it takes a decent amount of force. This is definitely, it's got a lot of spring tension, but the power is absolute. This is no slouch. It is powerful, which is what I like to see. And not because I want to go hold it up against the surface of something and fire it. That's movie nonsense. No, the reason you want power in a double action OTF is so that the thing reliably fires and locks out. You want it to overcome a certain amount of buildup, which is inevitable over time inside of the frame. You should regularly be blowing these things out and cleaning them out, right? But that power, if it's enough there, it will overcome anything that builds up in there. Now, I didn't use mine in any crazy dirty environments, or I didn't stuff a bunch of pocket lint in there to see if it would, if anything would happen. I just carried it and used it like I normally would, and I never had a failure. And believe me, I opened and closed it a lot of times. So much, in fact, that my wife told me multiple times, "Please stop doing that. I cannot stand the sound of that anymore." I know you guys know what I'm talking about there. It really fires like hard. Feels good. Maxace, if you do a version 2, just take a note from Microtech, widen the switch out. Widen it out. It allows for much more comfort. And if you keep the same tension there, it's that much easier to overcome the tension. This is just, it's fine. It works. It's not sharp or anything like that, but maybe a little bit of curvature right here. You can see what Microtech has done, curvature right here. And just a wider switch will really make it that much easier to deploy. But it's fine the way that it is. Just expect this to be a lot harder to fire than, say, the Guardian Tactical Recon 35. This is much closer to the experience I had with the original Combat Troodon, right? So there you go. But the feeling of deployment is awesome, and the power behind it is awesome. There is noticeable recoil when you fire this thing. Carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's a little bit. I mean, it is, just because it's trying to house everything inside of this pretty small profile, right? So it is a little bit thicker, but not crazy. And because of the shape, it just wasn't that hard to carry. This area right here, I'll kind of drive that home. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. It's just not, for how much knife you're carrying in your pocket, it's really not taking up that much space, right? Let's go ahead and do weight. So materials, what are we looking at here? We're looking at a Sanmai. There's actual cladding here. A Sanmai SLD Magic. What is that? That is, as far as I know, made by Hitachi. So it's a Japanese steel. Maxace is hardening this to 59 to 60. Now, what I find online is that, that it lists as like, a decent range is 59, 61. But apparently there are reports of this being able to be, you can harden it more and it's still reliable. I don't think an OTF is the type of tool that people are going to be chopping with or doing impact cutting or anything like that. Maxace, I guess you're probably okay here, but I think you should probably kick it up just a little bit. Maybe 60, 61. That's just what I'm reading. A little bit harder, right, without sacrificing that much toughness. I think because of the style of knife that this is, the people who want to buy it would probably appreciate that, but I don't know a lot about SLD Magic. I know that it is not a stainless composition, so the reason for the cladding is likely to increase corrosion resistance. I want to say it's like 1.5% carbon, 8% chromium, something like that. So definitely not a stainless steel. But again, that's probably the reason for the cladding. Now, I don't know what the other composition is, but it's very likely it is something that is, very, very stainless and much, much tougher. Which, again, if that's the case, we could run the hardness of the core a bit higher. Since you have this combination here, you have this protective jacket, right? So I don't know what Maxace's reasoning is for only pushing SLD to, the 59 to 61 range, but as an amateur who just reads a lot and handles a lot of knives, I feel like there's enough reason there to push the hardness a bit higher. It's really hard for me to complain about, though, because again, it's okay, and this is certainly substantially more competitive than anything else that we see at this price point. So those are materials. 7075 aluminum track tech inserts, and then the SLD Magic clad with some mystery, likely high stainless composition. Weight. The weight on this guy is coming in at, let's see if the scale can, there we go. The weight is coming in at 4.5 ounces, which is, not the worst ratios in the whole world. Honestly, for a full-size OTF, I'm really not super upset about it. The balance is about right here. For some people, that's going to matter a little bit more. I just didn't have a whole lot of trouble carrying this knife or using it. It never felt like a huge knife. It never felt like an overly heavy knife or anything like that. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get all my tools. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Are these T10s? Hold on. I have not actually looked. I mean, I never had to adjust anything. I don't think so. I bet they're T8. Yeah, they're T8. I was going to say, wow, Maxace going with the T10s there. Where are you at? This is the one that had, there we go. This is a T8. And that's exactly what it is. Thank you for not doing anything proprietary and making it easy for us to get on the inside of this. OTFs are really not as intimidating to take apart and maintain as they sort of suggest, right? You might think it's just really, you don't want to get on the inside because it's going to be a mess in there. Not bad. It's definitely not as easy as taking apart a pillar or sandwich construction liner lock or frame lock, but it's totally doable. Reach out to Maxace if you have an issue, but if you want to take care of it yourself, you get something lodged in there. At one point, I remember getting a pebble stuck inside of my Lightning OTF, and taking it apart, clearing the pebble, and putting it back together wasn't that tricky. As long as you have the right tools for the job and a place to put your hardware and the parts of the knife, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness here real quick. Let's see. Blade stock thickness coming in at, oh, come on, zero out. Blade stock thickness coming in at, trying to get it right on the flat there, 122. It's probably, yeah, it's going down. It's probably 120 thousandths, which is about what I'd expect. Okay, meat and potatoes time. I love the finish on this aluminum. Reflective battleship green gray. Very, very cool. I think this is a pretty unique look. There's still going to be people saying they copied Microtech with the profile. You don't have a lot of options with an OTF profile because it kind of has to be this general shape. So no, but the way that they did the inlays, right? The track tech, which certainly has not only been done by Microtech, I think that is also cool. They can do different inlays if they want to. If they wanted to put some lightning anode titanium in here, they could do that. If they wanted to put some carbon fiber in there, they could do that, right? There's a lot of options there. It would look really, really good. The aluminum can also be anodized to a wide variety of different colors. So if this ends up being a super popular model, there's a huge variety of different aesthetics that they could apply to this thing, which I think is pretty cool. But the way that this looks in its base form is awesome. It comes in 3 different blade styles, the dagger with the serrations, or is it a drop point or is it a tanto? I honestly can't remember. There's 3 different ones. The aesthetic is all very, very good. I cannot stress enough how well put together this knife is. There is nothing sloppy about this design. Everything is great. Even the total amount of I'm going to move this around. There's almost no movement. It's very, very similar to the new Combat Showdown. In fact, it's a little quieter. The edge is so impressive. A lot of times when you get like a cheap dagger, you don't have things that are perfectly symmetrical, right? But this is a Maxace. I mean, my God, that is perfect. It is completely flawless. The edge is wonderful. Honestly, I mean, it's not a thin edge, but it's good enough. And even with the heat treatment not being what I think is perfectly optimized. Sorry, I think that was already sliced there. Oop, am I catching wrong? Or do I have a bad spot on this from using it? There's a little nick right there from me using it. Let's try the other side. So maybe SLD Magic is a little bit chippy. It's got used for some cardboard here and there. Yeah, there's a little nick right there. Let's use the other side. Yeah, this side's fine. But on the side that I guess I use that a little bit more, right? There's a little bit of a nick there. But you can see where it is slicing. It's not doing a bad job. So I think as far as OTF geometry goes, not bad. They could probably make the flat a little bit more narrow. And, you know, keeping the same taper, right? You could come down and get the edge a little bit thinner. Perhaps, you know, something for a version 2, right? I know Maxace is capable of doing hollow grinds as well, but that would probably make it more expensive. But you know what? As it sits, it's great. And what I love the most is that the only billboarding we have on the whole thing is Maxace right here. The blade has nothing on it, which is absolutely gorgeous. Very, very cool. Ergonomically, it's actually all right. It's not hard or angular in any areas. They've really done a good job knocking everything down. The visible seam is perfect throughout the knife. There's no wonkiness or anything like that. You know, there's not even any grinding really underneath the switch, which is also a good area to put a little bit of your rem oil. Just really nice. You know, the only fairly disappointing part of the knife is I don't like glass breakers, so whatever, right? The pocket clip is kind of basic. But okay, I mean, fair. It's not a hyper expensive knife. I also think it's a little bit long. I don't think it needs to be this long. I think you could shave this down by 35% or so. It's also sitting right on top of this texturing here, which it does create a slight issue in and out of the pocket. It's not bad, right? Either widen it out so it's sitting on the like completely, it's already sitting kind of, I guess it is already sitting kind of on the outside of the frame, right? But I think it should probably be sitting right on top of one of these dividers. I mean, honestly, had they brought this way back and had this portion pinching on one of the smooth aluminum dividers there between the inserts, I think that probably would have been better. It doesn't sit, I mean, you can see here, it doesn't sit on one of those dividers. It's just sitting on this big open piece right here. So either we need one right here, or ideally shorten the clip up and bring it back here. That would be better. Not that big of a deal though, really. I don't know that there's really a whole lot more to say. This is a stupendous OTF. If Maxace can keep the price point here, slightly increase the Rockwell hardness, I think. I need to learn a little more about SLD Magic. Maybe one of you can enlighten me. Increase that slightly, right? And maybe change the clip up. I'd love to see some different variations, right? Oh, I'd love to see a black one, please. A black coated Neptune. God, so cool. This is, even as it sits, this is the best dollar for dollar OTF on the market. This is ridiculous. I am so impressed. Like Maxace, they do so many wild things. And this is a great example of Maxace going, yeah, you know what? If we want to make a banger, we'll just do it. You know, they make crazy, wild, monster, just like absolute monolithic disasters that are ultra, ultra high quality. And they do it for fun. But then whenever they want, they can maximize value and drop something into the market that is just superior in terms of value and the same levels of quality that we get from some of the best production companies in the business. It is ridiculous what Maxace is capable of. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the only reason not to pick this up, there's two reasons for some people not to pick this up. Number one, if it's just a little bit too big. And the answer to that, Maxace, is make one that's slightly smaller, right? Make one of these that's more the size of the Ultratech, right? Or even the UTX-85. That'd make a lot of people happy. The other reason is if you have reservations against buying things that are made in China. Okay, right? But man, if those two things, if you're like, I'm not bothered by those two things, holy moly, this is a deal. This is great. I cannot recommend this enough. There's a third reason, and it's a big one. If OTFs or automatic knives or switchblades, yes, this is a switchblade. No, switchblades, the definition is not exclusive to those knives, you know, that are the stiletto-style knives that you see in gangs in New York. No, a switchblade is any knife that operates automatically via a switch, right? So even whether it's a button or it's a sliding switch that automatically deploys the blade, I promise you this is legally defined as a switchblade. So you need to check your local laws and stuff like that. Is it legal for you to own and carry the thing? If it is there a limit on blade length? You got to check that out because some places there are. Or you might be legally allowed to own it, but not carry it. So you really got to check because that can get you in a lot of trouble, right? If you're clear to that, you don't mind the size, and you don't mind that it's made in China, holy moly, this will be one of your favorite knives. This is extremely recommendable. One of the most impressive things that Maxace has ever done. This will go, God, it's funny how close it is to a budget knife. Maxace, you should consider making a budget OTF. Consider making one of these that you can actually get under $75. This is already kind of shattering the market. So, you know, you could do a version that's, or, you know, go the opposite route and show us how crazy you can get with this thing. You know, adding a little bit more, you know, to the price tag. But I think this is a great foundation for something pretty spectacular. This is going to go on my most recommended knives playlist, and it's going to go on my favorite knives of all time because it's too good. This knife is too good. I don't know how they managed to do this. Wild stuff. I'll link it down below. I can't promise it's available, but if Maxace is as smart as I assume they are, they will have more of them. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.